Content warning. This video is going to be another one of those videos that covers the far-right bigoted numbskulls in the 40k fanbase, meaning the comments are probably really bad. The people in this horrid little diseased subset of the community are ultimately a minority, and they know this, and try to hide this fact by running in packs. Don't let any number of coordinated brigading efforts fool you. These people do not represent any silent majority like they'd have you believe. With that being said, let's get into this video. A few weeks ago, a neo-Nazi attended the largest Warhammer 40k tournament in Spain, GT Talavera, and on day 2 of the tournament wore this shirt. The alias he went by in the tournament was Austrian Painter. You know, like Hitler. He was a neo-Nazi. I don't want to hear any shit about, oh, but what if he was doing it ironically? No, shut the fuck up. This is a neo-Nazi. And understandably, many people didn't want to play with this literal neo-Nazi, with one person apparently refusing to play with him and asking that he be ejected from the tournament. According to a representative of GT Talavera, the neo-Nazi was taken aside and told that he couldn't wear the shirt, but then threatened to call the police. And according to the event organizers, because there's not a written rule beforehand, there was basically nothing they could do. Because if they did try to kick him out, he could claim ideological discrimination. Frankly, I went to the whole second page of Google search results and couldn't find anything regarding ideological discrimination laws in Spain. And that sounds kind of bullshit to me, especially if it could have been voided by just including a rule that disallows that behavior. But also, this statement from one of the event organizers frankly kind of exposes them of their massively privileged outlook when running this tournament. Supposedly, they had just never thought it possible that someone would rock up to a 40k tournament wearing fascist iconography, which is a fucking ridiculous statement to anyone in the 40k community who happens to be a member of any marginalized community. Because we will tell you straight up, there are a lot of bad, absolutely terrible people in this community. Backlash to the response was immediate when it came out that, instead of punishing the neo-Nazi for openly brandishing fascist iconography on his person, the people who refused to sit at a table with him were themselves punished by being hit with a disqualification via forfeiture. Again, according to event organizers, they were backed into a corner, couldn't do a damn thing about it, which, yeah, no, bullshit. As such, GT Talavera has been hit with a lot of backlash, and there have been calls to GW to implement worldwide rules for all GW-endorsed and sponsored events to punish this kind of behavior. And this event in particular seems to have struck a nerve over at Games Workshop, because on the Warhammer community website, they released this statement. There are no goodies in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. None. Especially not the Imperium of Man. Its numberless legions of soldiers and zealots bludgeon their way across the galaxy, delivering death to anyone and anything that doesn't adhere to their blinkered view of purity. Almost every man and woman toils in misery either on the battlefield, where survival is measured in hours, or in the countless manufactorums and hive slums that fuel the Imperial war machine. All of this in slavish servitude to the living corpse of a god-emperor whose commandments are at best only half-remembered, twisted by time and the fallibility of humanity. Warhammer 40,000 isn't just grimdark, it's the grimmest, darkest. The Imperium of Man stands as a cautionary tale of what could happen should the very worst of humanity's lust for power and extreme, unyielding xenophobia set in. Like so many aspects of Warhammer 40,000, the Imperium of Man is satirical. For clarity, satire is the use of humor, irony, or exaggeration, displaying people's vices or a system's flaws for scorn, derision, and ridicule. Something doesn't have to be wacky or laugh-out-loud funny to be satire. The derision is in the setting's amplification of a tyrannical, genocidal regime turned up to 11. The Imperium is not an aspirational state, outside of the in-universe perspectives of those who are slaves to its systems. It's a monstrous civilization, and its monstrousness is plain for all to see. That said, certain real-world hate groups and adherents of historical ideologies better left in the past sometimes seek to claim intellectual properties for their own enjoyment, and to co-opt them for their own agendas. We've said it before, but a reminder about what we believe in. We believe in and support a community united by shared values of mutual kindness and respect. Our fantasy settings are grim and dark, but that is not a reflection of who we are or how we feel the world should be. We will never accept nor condone any form of prejudice, hatred, or abuse in the company or in the Warhammer hobby. If you come to a Games Workshop event or store and behave to the contrary, including wearing the symbols of real-world hate groups, you will be asked to leave. We won't let you participate. We don't want your money. We don't want you in the Warhammer community. For those heroes out there running their own Warhammer events, we'd love for you to join us in this stance. Now, I must admit, basically everything I've been saying for the last year being validated personally by the company that I often cite as a massive source of the problem feels very cathartic. And I want to explicitly state that them saying this is great and a step in the right direction in actually dealing with the problem. However, I really wish they would have just added one extra line to the note right about here. Just a little something that says, "And we're sorry for playing into it and contributing to the problem for decades." Of course, they won't say that, but let me give you a few examples. In a Warhammer community article released about a month ago now, a top 5 list was made listing the 5 reasons why there's, and I quote, "still room for hope in the grim darkness of the far future." Let's take a look at number 1. Guilliman is back. Oh. They just said that the return of a space Nazi is a reason why there's room for hope. Okay. Let's move on, and let's move to the bottom of the list. See what's on the... Yeah. All right. Number 5. Things could definitely be a lot worse. Of all the remaining Primarchs who sided with the War Master during the Horus Heresy, only Magnus the Red and Mortarion have been active in recent years. Considering how much damage they've wrought in the Fenris and Ultramar systems between them, the Imperium can count its lucky stars that the other demon Primarchs seem to be content to remain within the Eye of Terror for now. And of course, one loyalist Primarch in Robude Guilliman has returned. Who's to say that some of his brothers might not show up at some point? If the Emperor could cross his fingers, we reckon he would. So they just put Guilliman returning on the list twice, basically. Okay. So it's satire. Okay, guys, it's satire. All right, you guys, it's satire. It's ironic. It's just a prank, bro. Games Workshop is ironically praising the Imperium as the good guys of the setting who are bringing hope to the galaxy in a completely ironic, out-of-universe article. It's fine. It's ironic. Oh, hey, Goobertown Hobbies' Twitter account. I wonder what you have to say. Wait, a battle report on Warhammer Plus said what? Yeah, so it's great, amazing even, that GW is making this kind of public statement, but I think we can agree for the most part that GW, at times, has not been effective at actually communicating their intent behind the Imperium as a satirization of fascism, and that comes down to a lack of clarity of purpose and intent. Satire requires both to be effective, or else it'll be mistaken for that which it claims to be against, and this is a rule that 40k has repeatedly failed at living up to. No one would ever mistake The Producers, or Blazing Saddles, or Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator as positive depictions of the horrible political ideologies and worldviews they satirize, and that's because they make it very clear that the people they're talking about fucking suck. And yes, that also sort of exists with 40k, with the occasional offhand remark about how gruesome the Imperium is, but even those are often characterized as metalness on the part of the Imperium rather than horrific acts of genocide. But then you have things like the above-listed examples, little model box sets called Space Marine Heroes, shirts that say "Born to be a Space Marine," baby onesies. And suddenly the idea that the Imperium is meant to be a satirization of fascism is something that really only becomes clear if you actively try to read deeper into the universe and the lore like I do. So thank you, GW, for making this message. I greatly appreciate it. But let's start putting our money where our mouth is. Talk is cheap. Start actually doing something to fix the root of the problem. Bring back the clarity of purpose and intent from the earliest days of 40k, back when Space Marines wrote hate on their knuckles and rage on their shoulder pads. There wasn't much mistaking the intent of the lore back then. And maybe you don't have to do it in overtly silly ways like Rogue Trader did, but at the very least you cannot say, oh, the Imperium is written to be a satirization of fascism whenever shit like GT Talavera pops up, because you've so blatantly contradicted that message in the past with your marketing. At that point, you're abdicating responsibility for the role you have had to play in this issue of community toxicity growing unabated for over a decade. I know my last few videos have been very anti-GW, so I want to make it very clear. I am glad this message exists. In fact, it was quite well made, with strong enough language to pierce through the skulls of people who refuse to engage with it otherwise. But last time they did this, they also fired a Black Library author for speaking out about this very same issue almost immediately after. So, I guess the point of this video is to say that the ball's in your court, Games Workshop. Whether or not this is seen as mere empty words will depend on the direction the franchise takes from this point onwards. I don't have a lot of hope, but please, for the love of God, make the very self-evidently correct decision here.